If anything about hip-hop and hip-hop culture is you do it your fucking self. Excuse my French.
There are sort of a lot of different opinions as to the precise origins of hip-hop, but the general consensus is that it started in the South Bronx in the early 1970s.
Walking the streets and seeing the abandoned buildings and wondering why the government is not putting money back into the community, and you got these politicians coming to the Bronx and looking around and decided that they're not wanting to, getting parks for us and getting, recreation rooms for us and stuff like that. We had to live through all of that. That's where hip-hop came out of.
Hip-hop is kind of regional in a small sense. Like it's in the Bronx and it was in a few different areas. And if you were from that area, then that's where you learned hip-hop. That's where you got your hip-hop from. If you from Bronx River, you got your hip-hop from Bambaataa. If you was from the West Side, you got it from Kool Herc. If you was from the South Bronx, you got it from Flash.
You see, everybody wants claims of this shit now. It's a billion-dollar industry. So everybody, this shit is coming from Brooklyn. This shit was made in Queens. This shit was made here. You know what I'm saying? This shit was made in the Bronx. As far as I'm concerned, it started with Bambaataa. Even Herc wasn't playing hip-hop at the beginning. You couldn't break dance at a Herc party back in the days, but for some reason, everybody seems to forget that.
Herc was the DJ over here on this side of town. As far as parks and youth is concerned, Herc was our DJ.
Myself and Grandmaster Flash, we were basically like the only two DJs, man, that was doing what we do on the turntables.
Now in the 70s there was disco and most of the DJs that were playing music back then, they would play the entire song because they wanted to keep the crowd on the dance floor.
You went to a Hollywood party, motherfuckers was not breakdancing. It was an older, sophisticated crowd. Back then, we used to call them the pretty boys. They had the gold frames back then, the mark necks, the gold chains with the gold medallions. Them cats was not getting on the floor. They was too pretty for that.
Herc started was to take just that small little break beat and continuously loop it by using two pieces of vinyl of the same record and then playing the break beat on that side, playing the break beat on that side, and just continually looping that one little track. So it's not like you could say it started there. People were coming up with these different elements almost at the same time or almost organically because they saw their cousins, saw their brothers, saw something and said, hey, that's pretty interesting. Let me see what I can do with it.
I think one of the key questions in the evolution of hip-hop was who invented this technique or who invented, that sound. The answer is there were a lot of different people who were responsible.
I'm on the turntables, I'm making this cassette tape, and the music got so loud in the house to where my moms came and burst in the room and kind of startled me. And during those couple of seconds, which seemed like an eternity, that's when I did the baby scratch, turned the music down, kept going with my cassette tape. When she left the room, I finished my cassette tape, started listening to it back, and when it got to the part where she came in the room, I could hear myself baby scratching. And I was like, wow, I can incorporate that into all the other things that I do as a DJ.
As a DJ, it was really about finding that record that nobody knew about and introducing it to the public in a unique kind of way that would keep them dancing and get them excited. It was about playing stuff that people did not hear on the radio. That's what hip-hop means to me.
There are elements in hip-hop culture. DJing, MCing, breakdancing, graffiti, and not in that order.
The shift away from the DJ, because of course the DJ was at the forefront. He was the man, he was who you came to see. But once the DJ put a front man in front of himself, he relegated himself to the background, okay? So even though he's still playing the music, it's his equipment and everything, who do you see first? You see me, and then you see a guy behind me. And that's where the attention started to get put on the MCs and taken off the DJ.
You never wanted to end because I got this sound. So tender and sweet, I make you wanna dance.
Here's Wonder Mike, Hank, and Master G, the Sugar Hill Gang.
In 1979, Sylvia Robinson, who's the head of Sugar Hill Records, walked into a club in Harlem, and she saw all these kids dancing in this club to this kind of new genre that she'd never really seen anything like before. She went back to New Jersey, where she lived, to Englewood. She found a guy working at a local pizzeria named Big Bank Hank, who was sort of a hybrid bouncer and manager for Grandmaster Caz's group at the time. Said to him, "Hey, you know, can you rap? I want to create this song." It ended up being Rapper's Delight. The entire verse that Big Bank Hank does, that's just directly cribbed from Grandmaster Caz's rhymes.
Nobody knew about rights or publishing or royalties or anything like that, so we didn't discuss any business as far as this is concerned. I just figured if you down with me, okay, and you make it or something happens, then it's gonna trickle down to me next. So that's why I just gave, threw the book of lyrics on the table, said, here, say this, and say that. He never looked back. Not to say thank you, not to say, here's a few dollars, so like nothing. He just never looked back.
One of the people who's instrumental in bringing corporate sponsorships, sort of global attention to hip hop, was a guy by the name of Charlie Stetler, who in the early 80s planned an event at Radio City Music Hall to bring 5,000-6,000 kids from the inner city to come see, what would be the sort of Hall of Fame of hip hop to that point. Some of the best performers of the day, and also a contest to sort of find out who was next. And the winner of that contest was the Fat Boys, who ended up being sort of his meal ticket, if you will, for quite some time.
That was on a Friday night. I went into the Roxy. I walked up the stairs, and on stage was this guy, fully dressed, this crazy regalia, and people rapping over here was new to me. There were kids on their heads spinning over there. It was new to me. There was kids with graffiti, all news to me. But I fell in love with the whole atmosphere as I walked in. And this person who had this thing on turned out to be Africa Bambaataa, who walked up to me and he said, "You're a crazy motherfucker. I saw you on Midday Live yesterday wearing a gorilla suit. Why don't you help us promote this thing? What's it called? HipHop." I got a meeting with Charles Warfield, who was the GM at WBLS. And he said, "Okay, I'll do this with you. I'll give you X amount of dollars of promotion if you find a sponsor." And I said, "How do you find a sponsor?" It was new business to me. He said, "Well, you go up to Coca-Cola, here's a guy's name, and you do what you do good." And I went up there with Linda with an easel, right? And we put the record there, all the press we had, and I walked out of there with a $300,000 check. And on the way out, this gentleman said to me, "Where do you want to hold the finale?" And I said, "Well, Studio 54 would be great." He said, "This is Coca-Cola, nothing less than Radio City Musical." So I went, shit, man. Went back to Charlie Warfield, BLS, sent out a press release. Thanks to Coca-Cola and WBLS, 5,600 inner city kids will get a chance to go to Radio City. We didn't know at that time that Radio City had never done a black anything. And then the event went on, and I'm upstairs doing some business, and all of a sudden I hear the crowd go berserk. And I peek out, and there's three chubby kids on stage, call themselves the Disco Three, and they're just literally tearing down the house. And Linda says to me, "We owe them a record contract," because that's what we had written on the poster. I said, "Oh shit."
Charlie Stetler and the Fat Boys really opened the door to some of the partnerships with brands that are now very commonplace in hip-hop today.
By the time Diddy came around, or by the time Jay-Z came around, at that point they started to pay insane deals. I remember when Michael Guido represented Jay-Z and Damon Dash back then. I think it was a $40–50 million deal, just like one shot. So it went kind of from here, nobody got it. Then I like to think I had a little something to do to get corporate America turned on to how huge this is going to be. And now people tell me hip hop is over. I say, "You've been telling me this for 25 years.
So over the past decade that we've been charting the top 20 earners in hip hop every year, the average person on that list has made nearly $25 million per year. The total is about $4.5 billion. It all came after, the pioneers had already been replaced. So you don't see Kool Herc or Grandmaster Flash or Africa Bambaataa on these hip hop Cash Kings lists.
A lot of the pioneers, and I never really got hooked up on that, none of that shit, they think somebody owe them something. You know what I'm saying? That's the worst shit you could think somebody owe you something. Motherfucker don't owe you nothing. You know what I'm saying? We did what we did. I consider we left our footprints in the sands of time. You know what I'm saying? When I'm dead and gone, my sons and my grandchildren still gonna be getting my checks.
To see hip hop go to that next level, and to see, you know, all these people, you know, becoming millionaires and being able to buy houses and sending their kids to college and stuff like that, you know, it was all good with me. I just wanted to make sure that these people know where it came from. You know, Wu-Tang Clan, Jay-Z, P. Diddy, you know, we just want to make sure that these people acknowledge us and be like, yo, you know, peace and blessings to the pioneers that put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into this, man. So that's basically, you know, all the announcement that I need, you know.
You are starting to see some modern day hip hop cash kings giving back to those founding fathers. You know, one great example is Macklemore with the song Downtown. He included Grandmaster Caz, Kool Moe Dee, and Melly Mel.
To me, it means everything when somebody like Macklemore came along. I mean, that was my first platinum record. That's my first MTV award. That's my first, I mean, big time, into the big time. I've been involved in the culture of hip hop for 43 years since it started. And all the years that hip hop has grown and all the people that have benefited from it and came out on top and was in a position to do something like a Macklemore did and never did, and never did. So how do I feel about Macklemore? I love him to death.
I think it's more important than ever to have a place where, you know, everybody can kind of agree on what was happening, you know, who started what and where, and kind of an official record of hip hop. And that's where the Universal Hip Hop Museum comes in.
The whole concept of the Universal Hip Hop Museum is because hip hop belongs to the entire planet, to the entire world. It may have started here in the Bronx, but it has become a global hip hop community.
Just like they got a museum of natural history, and then you got the MoMA Museum. We want a hip hop museum because, you know, hip hop changed the world.
The Universal Hip Hop Museum is still in development, but Hush Tours, for example, has been around for over a decade. They take tourists from Times Square to the Bronx to see where hip hop actually began. And the tours are led by guys like Grandmaster Caz and other pioneers of the genre.
I said, I'm gonna start a tour that's based on hip hop culture, but I don't want to be a tour guide. I want the pioneers to be involved. It's their stories firsthand, they lived it. A lot of them still are active in hip hop culture. So for our guests, it's almost equivalent to a rock and roll fan going to Graceland.
Hip hop is not about, I'm going to kill this person, I'm going to kill that person, I'm going to disrespect women, I'm going to glorify drugs, I'm going to glorify being in gangs and stuff like that. That's not what hip hop is. Hip hop is about peace, love, unity, and having fun.
Hip hop is everybody now. Even the young white boys is hip hop. You know what I'm saying? That shit touched everybody.
If I go into a studio and if I find my truth of the moment, there are a number of people in the world that can relate to what I'm saying.
As I drive home and shit, I just think about just the past, like, you know, the foundation, the shit we built. Like, this shit is just, it's just crazy, man. It's just crazy.